The Air Corps Blue Eagles in various incarnations, but particularly given our theme here at Fly Navy 2022, RNAS Culdrose in Cornwall, and indeed two of the 4 Gazelles in today's formation, and they're the last two moving off the flight line now, are X705 Squadron, one of them still in the distinctive colours of that unit with the shark emblem on the tail and the red and white livery, down at the end of 2018, since sold into civilian hands, and that's the one with large nose probe. That's fitted as part of the action trial calibration and measuring the kit that was installed on board.
Clearly showing its aerospatiale earlier configuration as the Alouette. That heritage extended into the Gazelle. Built under licence at Yeovil in Somerset by Westland Helicopters. Just shy of 1,800 of these machines were produced in total, 292 by Westland themselves. Dual controlled 5-seater utility and training machine, also used by the Army and the RAF. Several variants of the Gazelle went into service over the years, but
now, as I was saying, this event supported in absolutely tremendous style by Navy Wings, the charity that does so much to promote and further the preservation of the memory of Royal Navy flying of the past, and indeed to inspire interest in Royal Navy flying of the present. And as the Gazelles cross over, I'm delighted to be joined here by the President of Navy Wings, Admiral Sir George Zambellas. Sir George, welcome to Old Warden. Wonderful to see you.
Thank you very much indeed. It's a delight to be here. What a great afternoon.
Indeed it is, and all the better for the support from so many organisations with which Navy Wings is associated.
Yeah, we have a marvellous group of fellow heritage specialists here today, all of whom contributing to this incredible afternoon of aviation.
Now, the reason we've brought you in here right at the start, Sir George,
onto the Gazelle, and it was like climbing into a sports car. They are so agile, so fast, and huge fun.
And indeed immensely versatile, as proved by the range of roles to which the Gazelle has been put in the British Armed Services.
That's correct. It's been used in
and of course 705 famed for providing the Sharks display team for so many seasons.
Yeah, we all want to be a member of the Sharks display team. I wasn't good enough, but we thoroughly enjoyed watching them do their work, especially at Culdrose and around the country.
And we do have a former Sharks team leader flying a number of slots today in the form of John Beattie, don't we?
Yes, and John Beattie was my instructor, so he's responsible for almost everything that happened to me.
So what was the training syllabus that you went through then on the Gazelle in the Navy?
Well, it always started off with the effective controls, and it was rather fun because it was our first touch of a helicopter. They took you in the middle of a field and said, there, try and stay in the field. And that was quite a challenge.
In your service?
Now, there's a question. I guess it was around about 35 to 40, and then the next aircraft was the Mark II Sequel. And that was when we began your advanced flight training.
So what was the route that you then took onwards from the Mark II Sequel? What were the other types you flew in your active service?
I flew the Mark V and then the Mark VI Sequel, followed by the venerable Wasp helicopter, then the Lynx helicopter, before eventually being dragged away from aviation.
So a very, very full a very, very full career that you put down. The aircraft leading the formation was the last Gazelle on their strength. The rotary wing fleet at Boston Down, having now transitioned on to more modern types. And Sir George,
the ground, where, although it's very noisy, because it's small, it could land in discrete areas and provide spotty information too.
yes, and that was the Fleet Commando Brigade Air Squadron, which, as I said, later became 847 Naval Air Squadron. Now one of the ex-Sharks Gazelles, coming in opposition to the other three. It was a very interesting innovation, the fenestrong tail, wasn't it, when it first came into use on the Gazelle?
It was. We all wondered about the efficiency of the design because of the ducted fan. But as it turned out, the shrouded effect was particularly effective because...
In the training role with number 2 Flying Training School and with the Central Flying School, but they were also used in a different mark, the Gazelle HCC-4, by number 32 Squadron for VIP transport duties. And one of the other Gazelles used by the Gazelle Squadron display team indeed carries the markings of a number 32 Squadron example. And here they come, out to our right, running in the Hawker Sea Hurricane 1B, the Supermarine Spitfire 5C, and the Supermarine Seafire 17. Still with us, the President of Navy Wing.
In 2006. And here they come again. But every 10 years or so, it's good to get these things a further overhaul. So we build SX-336. It works over in our little workshop over at the other side of the field here at Penn Aviation. And the Navy fell in love with it, and we couldn't find a better home for it. So I'm really glad that Admiral Sir George and the team now are operating it, and it's going to the right place.
Indeed so, but not the last Seafire this will be, to emerge from the Kennet workshops in the
field after its naval service struck on charge in 1955. It languished on a fire dump for a good few years before it was rescued for renovation. As a carrier-based fighter, it saw service with the British Royal Navy, with the French Navy, the Royal Canadian Navy. Also served until 1954 with the Irish Air Corps. The Seafire powered by a Rolls-Royce Griffon engine, some of the earlier engines. The Shuttleworth collection Sea Hurricane 1B is the only surviving airworthy example of a Sea Hurricane in existence. It was built in Canada in 1941, went into service sorties over occupied Europe, including, of course, the Memphis Belle of the 91st Bombardment Group. After active service, it became an instructional airframe for a number of years.
weren't able to operate at sufficient distance from shore.
And testament to the design skills of Sydney Cam.
The first Sea Hurricane 1As, which were converted XRAF Hurricanes, began equipping 880 Squadron in February 19... A name that we'll no doubt refer to a lot over this afternoon. Captain Eric Winkle-Brown, the great naval test pilot, said the Hurricane took to the naval environment remarkably well. And indeed it did. 18 squadrons flew the Sea Hurricane, the type being withdrawn gradually as aircraft like the Seafire and also the Grumman Martlet that we'll see later and overseas, not least for the training of telegraphist air gunners as part of the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan. Those three. Post-war civilian Avro 19. It has been painted since 2018 in the colours of and Boscombe Down, and the naval connection is once again with Captain Eric Winkle-Brown, because he was one of the test pilots who flew this Olympia from those two great test and evaluation airfields. Amongst the others was the former Hawker test pilot Bill Bedford, who in 1950 flew this glider from Farnborough to Newcastle and took it up to 21,000 feet, which was then a new British record. And there, what you might think of as D-Day invasion stripe style stripes for pure conspicuity purposes. Elliotts of Newbury was an interesting company actually. They were furniture makers. They'd been involved in building aircraft components during wartime, and they employed many former German prisoners of war to make components for the Olympiads. They were able to return home by that point, but they stayed in Britain as... We had Jean-Michel Munn in the Anson with Richard Crockett in the other seat, and here comes the Cub tug to drop the tow line.
The Shuttleworth collection shooter was a bit of a film star for a while. It was used in the filming of the Reach for the Sky film about Douglas' father, although it did suffer an engine failure early on in the film and had to be replaced. A lot of the tutors had an unpowered engine up front. The Shuttleworth example, I think does much better with that powered around the cylinder.
Two Tigers in service until at least 1967. The nations of Australia, Brazil and the Netherlands are amongst those who have also flown Tigers.
Examples of the shooter had a tail scoop, same as the fighter mod. Later models were fitted with a fully cast-through tail wheel, which aided...
That's all the heat haze from the helicopter, you can't see it properly.
There were a few, I think we had 18 shooters that were produced locally as well.
Yes, the shooter was we've got within the show today, because apart from being flown by the RAF.
One of the reasons for introducing the tutor as a basic trainer was to replace the Avro 504. Some 600 tutors for the outfit of the Second World War, where there's still some 200
The Magister
made it all the way from South America to take part in that display.
The Fleet Air Arm had 11 Magisters delivered from 1937 to 39. A few more were transferred across in wartime. Their main operator being 780 Squadron and Eastleigh in Southampton.
In June of 1940, several Magisters were equipped with hardpoints under the wing to carry bombs for what was going to be Operation Frankfurt, although that particular operation was dropped. So the Magister actually never saw service in the end as an active wartime aircraft, and continued in the training role.
The Chipmunk pulling away first from the formation. The Royal Navy took on third Chippies in 1966, replacing
Spitfire after the Hurricane. Many, of course, of these frontline service pilots have probably never flown a tail dragger before they volunteer for the Battle of Memorial Line. From the Chipmunk, the pilots will continue their training after.
Had us all walked before last year. The other one is new to us. A pair of immensely illustrious rotorcraft of the Royal Navy. On the left, the Westland Seeking HC4. On the right, the newcomer to award the Westland Wessex HU5.
Growing up as I did in the middle of the Norfolk Broads, I would often see the search and rescue helicopters operating out of RAF Coateshaw. They were Westland Whirlwind helicopters. I always thought looked a rather ungainly machine, and always delighted when a Wessex would visit Coateshaw because I just thought it was a sleeker, sexier looking machine, and it was always a favourite. Wonderful, although no longer in active service, to see the Wessex still in the skies.
We've got some numbers as well. Both of these with their origins in 1978, seeking the F-61.
.382 Wessex were built by Westland. Initial orders were for the Royal Navy, later the RAF. And the Wessex enjoyed a 40-plus year career with both arms of the military service. Flown as a general workhorse, as a troop carrier, anti-submarine warfare and search and rescue missions. The Wessex proved to be a very versatile carrier and destroyer board, extending the utility of the ships that she flew from. Most famously 40 years ago saw active service in the Falklands.
This is hard to underestimate, and developed originally for the commando support role, flying from assault ships. They flew in significant numbers during the Falklands campaign 40 years ago, deploying special forces, members of both the SAS, the Special Air Service, and the SPS, the Special Boat Service, moving men and material around theatre. 9 Wessex were lost in the Falklands, including 6 in the sinking of the container ship.
There are 2, possibly 3 seaplanes still operational to train Navy pilots down on the south coast.
Yes, with a company called Heliops, operating on a contractor basis.
As an aerial taxi, but not just any aerial taxi, used to fly Joes or agents behind enemy lines, often to, as to be said, a certain death. Many of those agents spent their final hours before that fight. Powered by a Bristol Mercury air-cooled radial engine, and although the Lizzie might look a little bit cumbersome, had fully automatic wing slats, variable incidence tailplane, and an excellent stall speed below 65 miles an hour, which meant it was ideal for short field operations, could drop down behind enemy lines in its role as a taxi for secret agents into roughly prepared strips, even into ploughed fields if need be. Lizzie aptly demonstrated its espionage role at the Espionage Airshow a few weeks ago here at Old Warden.
They fulfilled certain maritime-related roles early in the war, when the Army Cooperation Squadrons were assigned, for example, to the Provisional Air Sea Rescue Service during the Battle of Britain, searching for downed RAF in the Channel, passing the message of their location on for rescue launchers or other craft to pick up. it must be said they weren't especially successful in that role. They also would patrol potential invasion areas along the south coast, which was extremely boring work for the pilots, one of whom was yes, and you can tell it's a depiction of a special duties Lysander by virtue of the under fuselage long range tank and the access ladder on the fuselage side.
Although it'd be nice to see some sunshine against that backdrop of that dark cloud. Perfect setting, I think, for the Lysander in this particular livery, depicting his wartime role.
This aircraft is built in Canada by the National Steel Car Corporation of Moulton in Ontario, and it was used as a target tug by the Royal Canadian Air Force.
Generally similar overall to the earlier design built Fury, although a little bit slower. What you can trace with the fuselage, when you see the fuselage side on, and she makes some of her fly paths down the display line, is the heritage that the Hurricane was born out of. Very, very distinctive fuselage shape from these earlier Hawker biplanes. Single engine carrier.
Just 3 squadrons of the Fleet Air Arm operated Nimrod's 800 aboard HMS Courageous, 801 on Furious, and 802 on Glorious. At this time, incidentally, in the 30s, the FAA was operationally or organisationally part of the Royal Air Force. It wasn't transferred to the Admiralty until 39.
Nimrod was
Schedule this.
The Western Watch, one. Today, we have 3 of them.
the Ross born out of a requirement for a helicopter capable of operating from Royal Navy small ships, frigates in particular, to carry out principally anti-submarine warfare roles. One of the advantages of the WASP design was its ability to the small size and stability made it ideal for the role that was itself in service with the Royal Navy.
The WASP had no onboard sonar. It was largely seen as being a weapons-carrying platform only, which would be sent and directed towards its target by its parent small...
Yes, it was the decommissioning of the last of the Type 12 Romsey-class frigates. That saw the end of the Wasp in frontline service with the Royal Navy. Conflict actually came from a Wasp helicopter playing its part in disabling the submarine that Ben mentioned a while ago, the Santa Fe. The lead Wasp in that fly past is in the colours. Wasp had the nickname as the quick outrigger because of its versatility. And I think given the way that he puts it around the skies and the fact that there are never spinning the tail, what is appropriate name for this particular Western helicopter?
For spotting beauties, here comes the BMF Fire Navy. They're going back to base, that's right. Story behind it. It's running up on the far side of the field just to...
This is a faithful reproduction of almost all of the original aircraft built by two grandsons to represent the aircraft flown by Flight Sub-Lieutenant Ronnie Bremner. Between 1915 and 1916. I say almost replica because when Bremner was in the tone for the because he got there again, he brought with it the slip of the rudder and the magneto of the scope that he flew. And they formed the basis of this restoration. What's rather performance of anything the Germans had. They're all reflected in the definitive production model, the Scout C, by both the Royal Flying Corps and the Royal Naval Air Service. Most of the early RNAS examples were spent